Okay, hello. Welcome to the summit. Krista, I'm so excited to have you.
I am so excited to be here. Like, really. Yay.
Yay. Okay, so
Let's do this.
let's do it. I'm going to get started by reading her bio. So, Krista Petty Raimer is a Raimer. Oh my gosh. Is an international facilitator, coach, and evocateur. No!
Evocateur. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be so much
I
fun.
love it. Okay, we're going to talk about that. I literally before rehearsed this word 4 times and still couldn't say it. She holds an MA in transpersonal psychology and has spent the last 20 years creating experiential learning environments where people can learn, grow, and thrive in the classroom of life. She believes every human being holds unlimited power and possibility and has a responsibility to live their divine expression. I mean, that's amazing. It's
Thank you.
amazing. I cannot wait to get into all this. So first, let's explain a little bit about this word that I cannot say for the life of me and what it is that it means and you do.
So, you know how you create the bios or how to best to describe yourself or characteristics that are, that make you distinct? Like,
Yeah.
this was one of those words that as I reached out to people and said, like if you were to describe me, what would be a word you would describe me as? And this word came back to me like amazing, like a lot of people. So I began to explore
Wow.
it and find out what it means. And I was like, you know what I am? Evocateur, meaning that I really am passionate about evoking and drawing out and calling forth from people their dreams, their vision, their next bold move, their what they love, where they want to go, what they call the connection between mind, body, and spirit. So all that we're talking about today, rather than me telling people and lecturing and being the one who has all the information or answers, what I love more than anything is to ask deep, evoking questions, questions that allow them to find the answers in them, because I believe that that's true,
Oh,
that we
that's
have our own
awesome.
answers. It's just a matter of kind of being asked questions consistently over time where we can find out what that is and come to know it from the inside out. So I love the word. I kind of feel like I get to grow up and put my big girl panties on to be it. But I also know that it comes pretty naturally to me. So
It's
I'm actually excited
awesome.
for you to evoke from me. I'm excited for you to ask me questions because I'm normally on the other side of it. So I'm super excited.
I know. I'm like, maybe I'm going to add that to my bio
You
one
should.
day. I'll just be like, I can't say this word, but it's what I do.
Right. I'm an Evo.
Yeah, exactly. Just an Eva. I'm just going to shorten it. I mean, we shorten everything else these days, so why not?
Sure.
Well, tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting Krista for the first time at a Grace workshop that she did, which, I mean, in full disclosure, I was like, oh, weekend with all women. All right, and I have to say it was pivotal in my experience for how I view femininity now. I mean, really. Like the way that I view that now is completely different. How I look at women and everything has completely changed. And so it was really one of the big parts for me, I feel like, in discovering that. And I was blown away. And we've done like some little things since. And so I've just been super excited to have you on the summit and be able to now, get some more information out of you and where all this started from. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your background.
First of all, thank you for that amazing endorsement and just a confirmation of the work that we're doing and that I do. So one of the things I recognize is I've always been deeply curious about people since I was a kid. Most of my life, I've been the kid sitting in the restaurant, mouth agape, staring at people and the dynamics of families at the other tables. Like that's just, I remember my family saying, close your mouth, you're staring. But I was just always fascinated and curious about people and the dynamics and what was going on and why we do what we do. And then I was an athlete for a good portion of my life. And this deep curiosity combined with a coaching model for a
Yeah.
lot of years, I learned a lot about what is possible in a coaching model and or someone committed to facilitating someone's greatness, bringing out the best. How can we facilitate groups to achieve amazing, exceptional results and success? And then as I got a little older, I had the opportunity to attend Naropa studied transpersonal psychology. And I felt like in some ways I'd kind of hit the trifecta of this deep, innate natural curiosity, this coaching model, consistency over time in that, and then transpersonal psychology, which I best describe shorthand as that interface between Western psychology and Eastern wisdom, tradition, and practice. And so how those two interface. And so I love to use my deep curiosity for people, use a coaching model, and then developed myself as a facilitator in creating the kind of learning environments where we can explore the mind and really the psychology of our thinking process and the cognitive process, combined with really the emotional landscape. And we'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about the story and all of those things.
Yeah.
And then the piece that I also love from being an athlete, being committed to the integration of all, is the embodiment piece, which is how do we embody the awareness and the ability to live into unlimited power and possibility when we can kind of clear things out, connect to who we are, what we long to live into and bring to the world. How do we embody that? How do we live that through action, through this body that we've been given? And grace, grace is really where it came from is my own pain and difficulty in my life around relationship with my mother and my relationship with being a mom, not being a mom, all of those things. I wanted to create a women's workshop where we could get in and actually talk about real things, what it's like to be a woman in the world, and where we're being indoctrinated and educated in what femininity is or what it isn't, in a way that I came to find just isn't true. Like we're not being educated on the power of femininity and how to use that in today's world. And so really looking at the integration of healthy masculine, healthy feminine expressed through us as women in the world. And that's where I birthed Grace.
So awesome.
And we have fun, we laugh, we cry, we dance, we celebrate, we have a blast, and we do some deep, profound, and I love what you said, pivotal work for people.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's sort of everything you might think might happen, and then not at all what actually happens in it.
I love that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I have women who go, why would I do that? Like, I was one of those women.
Yeah.
I created a workshop that I was like, why would I go spend a weekend with women? Why? Because I am one. Might be important for me to come home to the fact that I am one. And then the power of when women come together and collectively empower and support each other, like what we can do in those environments and what's possible. I mean, even looking at your partners in creating the summit is just phenomenal. So
it's so cool. Before we go even more into that, what was one of your first experiences where you really saw that mind-body connection for yourself or spirit? I mean, where was somewhere in your life where that kind of came together for you?
Mind and body, definitely athletics.
Yeah.
I began really clear, as I played college sports, I went on to play semi-pro, that whole idea of that the game really happens in my mind first. And that my ability to be really clear and focused and purposeful and override the negative conversations or the narratives or the beliefs that are not supporting me but impeding my development and growth, to learn how to move through those, navigate those, and continue to pursue excellence and where I wanted to go and reach the goals I wanted to. I really realized it wasn't just about playing the game of basketball or volleyball. It was about knowing the game of basketball and volleyball inside out. It wasn't just learning more skills, because you can hit the ceiling of skill level.
Right.
And then it becomes, I remember my dad saying to me, at some point, honey, you're not going to ride on your laurels anymore. Your physical gifts are going to be outweighed by your internal conversations and beliefs. Ooh. And it was one of those, that was also a pivotal moment where I remembered him saying that. Didn't listen to it then. I was a teen. I was like, whatever, Dad. But later on went, oh my gosh, this is what he was talking about. And now I have to actually get really clear about the game inside my head that I'm playing.
Isn't
Really
that so
telling myself,
powerful to be told as a
right?
teenager?
Yeah. And my dad, so wise. And, he was a single parent,
Right.
He was raising us, doing his best. And one of the things that was a little confusing to me is that my dad was way more feminine in his energy and presence than my mom was. And so I got real mixed messages around that, but he would come to us with that wisdom all the time.
That's
And of
amazing.
course, I would look back as an adult and go, oh my gosh, he was so right on.
Totally. I mean, because that's like that advice could be used in like any game you're playing, right? Yeah.
The game of life,
The
right?
game of life. Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I liked about too in your intro when you talked about the classroom of life, because it's really what it is.
It is. And all the lessons I didn't learn in school, all the
Yeah.
lessons I didn't learn in the traditional education that I believe, can really only come from the experience. It's why I love to do experiential learning environments, because instead of me just lecturing and telling and disseminating information, I really want people to engage in this possibility and see what they find out and learn about themselves, so that they can go live it, so that they can go practice that, so that they can take it outside of the workshop or the classroom.
Right.
Because let's admit, where's the fun, really? It's watching it happen at my dinner table, or in
Right.
my personal relationships, or with
Right.
my children, or at my workplace. So
Yeah.
that's where it's like, it's working.
I know. You're like, I
It's
see.
fine. That's my life.
It's so awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about taking your next bold move. And this is a talk you're giving at Wanderlust too,
Yeah.
as well. So
Well,
exciting.
right? I was there with in Whistler, BC last year. I spoke at Wanderlust and had a blast. Loved it. The people were amazing, and super excited to go back to Squaw Valley this year. So
Cool.
coming to California.
Yay, home state.
Totally.
So talk to me about it.
Okay.
Tell me all about it. Let's get into
Well,
it.
one of the things you asked me to just kind of think about that I like to talk about is this whole notion of our next bold move, taking our next bold move, and this idea of waiting for chance or something outside of me to change the story of my life. And you asked me about, like, will you explain a little bit more about what you mean by someone's story? And I think that's a pivotal piece of, so often when I'm working with people, that they don't yet understand or believe that they are the author of their life. Meaning, we may not have been as kids, right? So the things that happened to us in our earlier years, what I find is as adults, sometimes we begin to think that we are what has happened to us, or we begin to become what we believe. And if we don't check in on what we believe about ourselves or about life or about relationship, we'll become those beliefs unconsciously. So what I love to do is to make people conscious of, what are the narratives and conversations and stories you're telling yourself, and are they supporting you in achieving what you really want to achieve, or live into what you feel is like that next level for you, or that what longs to be expressed or lived, or whatever it is. Freedom, joy, passion, dreams, excitement. Write the book, do the podcast, whatever it is, where you have the opportunity. I'm having this hard time with my earbuds. I love it. Anyway, so what I love to coach people to is first that awareness piece of, you have the opportunity to rewrite your life. If you don't like the story your life is telling, let's turn a new page and start taking responsibility to writing a new story. Because as adults, we have the power to do that. That we're not what has happened to us. We're not what other people think of us. And we're not even what we've been telling ourselves for years, if it's not true, So we have the opportunity in the work that I do to stop and really look and take responsibility for that, and then begin to live ever more intentional. And what I mean by that is really being in the practice of intentional day-to-day living, where I pick up the pen and author my life, where I make choices based on what I say I value and is important to me. And it's challenging at first for us to break those habits, to undo some of the things that we've been doing for a really long time, but that it supports people in that. And then once we can start to do that, then that next piece is, all right, now that we can clear some of that out of the way, what does long to be expressed? What would be your next bold move? And that could be anything. It could be anything. It could be shifting my parenting style. It could be, I want to shift in my body and how I feel and what I experience in my body. It could be, I want to start a business. I could, whatever it is, big, small, something in between. I love and am passionate about coaching and supporting people in their next bold move. And so what is that for you? What do you think about and wonder about and imagine about, but that maybe you don't give voice to? What longs to come alive in you and be lived on a regular basis? What do you want to see in the mirror when you look in the mirror? What do you want to see in your family or your relationships or your community? And then the final piece is the accountability piece. We all know accountability is key. That when we're shifting thinking, we're shifting behaviors, we're creating new action and therefore new results, accountability is love. To surround myself and have people in my corner who are supporting me and being accountable to what I say I want, what matters, and do that consistently over the time. And what goes onto the page of your life starts to take on a life of its own and starts to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have to go to the movie to be inspired by somebody else's life.
Right.
I can just be in my own life and be the key character and role and be inspired by my own life. Like if I could support people in being deeply inspired by their own life and what they're living, then I feel like that's a pretty good life. That's a pretty good gig.
That's a really good gig.
If people can be inspired by their own life, I think that's a pretty good gig.
I think that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I have so many questions within that, but one of the first ones is, so when you start to show people that their story is not just, what's happened to them, how do you see people, or maybe how you help them overcome that initial, like, no, these are the things that have happened to me. This is why I'm here. I mean, it's like, we all want to sort of, because I see this in practice too, right? It's like we want to defend our story of like, this is where I came from. No, this is why I'm here. Like, how do you sort of manage that? I guess is the best word.
Yeah, like I have some really key tools that I use in the workshops that I do and in my coaching. But one of the biggest pieces is what's done is done. And we can't go back and change that. All we can change is right here, right now. So if we want to shift the trajectory of our future life, it's happening right here in this moment. And one of the biggest mantras I say is whatever conversation we're living in right now, that's what we're creating in the moment. So become aware of what you're telling yourself, because whatever those conversations are, that's what we're creating. So then I just have people stop and go, when you listen to that conversation, whether it be a conversation of not enough, or I'm scared about change, or I've been a victim to whatever it is, but the pain is too deep. When I have them just stop and look and say, yeah, I hear you. Yes, I recognize all of those events. They happened. That's real. And the conversation you have about them is creating your moment right now. So if you don't like what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, we got to start looking at how we are the creators and the authors of what's happening in our everyday life. So I just have them look at, if you don't like the outcomes and the results, then we got to shift the conversation about the historical events. If you don't like the outcomes and results, we got to shift the conversation and interpretation we're having with the previous and historical events. And what I do is just have them come present right here. This is where that Western psychology and Eastern wisdom tradition of present moment awareness and quieting the narrative and conversation so that I can listen to the deeper voice and conversation works so well with people. So I use a tool called E plus R equals O, that the events plus our response to those events equals the outcomes we're creating in our life. Most people want to change the events or they want to change the outcomes. What I coach to is the R. How we're responding and relating to those events is directly where we're creating our future tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day life. So,
right. So cool.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense, though.
Yeah. It's so powerful for people to realize, oh my gosh, I have the power to change it. I don't need the right equation or the right schooling or the right relationship or the right house or the right job or the right whatever. Like those things are nice when they can align, but I actually have the power. It's not outside of me. When people wake up to that, it is magic.
Yeah.
I have the power. Now, do they struggle sometimes to use and utilize the power? Sure. I'm sure you see that in your practice, that as soon as they wake up to that, that's the first step. And then it's now that you know, how do you want to use that to forward you and create the life you want to create? But it's magic when we realize, oh my gosh, I have the power. I don't have to look for somebody else.
Right.
I don't have to look for something else to tell me. I can do it.
Right. Instead of always looking for that external validation or that external permission almost too.
Right.
Right.
Right. And then also feeling disappointed when we can't seem to find it outside of ourselves.
Right.
We're let down. We're disappointed. We feel victims to other people or other things or circumstances instead of just being willing to look ourselves in the mirror and go, what can I do? What can I learn? And therefore, what action do I want to take now?
Right.
Right now.
So you've done, how many Grace workshops have you done? Or how long have you been doing it for?
Well, tens of thousands of people. I've been doing it for
Right.
about 16, 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so not my first rodeo
No.
and love it. Yeah, so for a lot of years, and I've sat in circle and worked with tens of thousands of diverse, multicultural, different countries, different language, just, yeah.
I ask because I'm sure you have a really cool example of someone who was able to change their story. Because while there are people who are resistant to it, but there's also the people who have just been like waiting for you to say, like, you can change your story. And they're like, okay. And you
Yeah.
can have those instantaneous shifts because why not? And so if you have any stories or any like results that you saw that were like worth sharing, I'd love to hear it.
Like I have so many, so let me see what ones come.
Yeah.
The ones that come always quickly to me are, and this is a conversation you and I have had before, but one of the ones that really move me are the number of women who came into my workshops believing they couldn't get pregnant, that something was wrong with them, that they, for some reason, it wasn't in the cards for them, that it was just impossible, and in so much pain around that. You know, we put a lot of pressure on women to that somehow we don't fulfill our purpose as a woman if we don't give birth to our own children. I disagree, and I still get to work with women who believe that's part of their purpose for being here. But a number of women, I don't know the number now, we're upwards into like 50s and 60s, but of women who have come in and believed that they just aren't fertile. It's not going to happen. And they've been to the doctors and they've been to the specialists and they've been through all of this process and done everything that they were told to do and felt like it was helpless and hopeless. And so they come to the workshop just to kind of get over the idea of getting pregnant. And one of the things that I love to work with them about really is, are you willing to shift your lifestyle? Meaning not just what you do in your life, but who you are inside of you and how you relate to all of this. And so we really just began to explore what it would mean to create a fertile environment inside of you.
Ooh.
Before we even talk about getting pregnant, how could we create a safe environment where, fertility and incubating something and growing something inside of you, it's conducive, right? And so, like reception feeds conception.
I love that. I'm going to put that on my office wall.
Right? So being willing to be with them in their conversations and all of the mind-body work and the willingness to turn it over to something greater. Because you asked me earlier about that mind-body-spirit connection, and I do hold that there is a divine orchestration and that it works ever more beautifully and with ease when we're aligned in that versus not. And for women to be in the practice of creating a fertile, receptive environment, which requires them to do some things that maybe they weren't willing to do. We can't aggressively assert and go into resolution on day to day and think that that's going to create an internal environment that will receive and conceive. And so
true.
Yeah, I've had incredible success there. I've had, they call them grace babies all the time, like where women have come in and, then in the next 3 months or 6 months or a year later, they call and say, I'm pregnant, or I just delivered my first baby, or here's a picture of my 6-month-old. Again, like, I gotta say, like, it brings tears to my eyes now because I'm like, it's a pretty good gig.
So awesome. Well, I mean, it makes so much sense because, I mean, I know things have changed a lot over the last probably hundreds of years, but women do. A lot of them are, if I need to get pregnant, okay, what are all the things I have to do? And
I'm going to attack it with this level of, committed to the outcome. I am making this happen. I got to be committed. I got to be committed. I got to do whatever it takes. It doesn't support.
Right.
Now, some women can, but a lot of women don't. And one of the things that I say oftentimes too is this whole idea of premature or ovarian failure, I think is our responsibility socially. We're failing women to embrace feminine energy and grace. Like, I just believe we must become ever more supportive. We got to get off and I'm going to be really bold here.
Go for it.
Women's liberation and fierce women's liberation ultimately will bring us to a similar status quo. So how can we be the balance and integration of both of those? How can we eradicate the belief that feminine is soft and weak and too emotional and victim? And how do we rise up in a very powerful, consistent, empowering, and no shit, show the true mystery of feminine energy and power, and create a balance here. Unhealthy masculine, we see it everywhere, is burning this place up. The planet, people, relationships, across the board, business, 100%. Enterprise. So we get to bring it out of the home and bring it out into the community and society, and start redefining and re-expressing powerfully what it means to be a woman and what it means to embody the integration of masculine and feminine in a way that supports all.
I mean, I love that. And I think that's, when I first did Grace, I think that was where I really came from, of like, well, feminine's kind of weak and kind of, and it's so crazy how it's like, I don't even know where that came from for myself, but I know for a lot of women, they have maybe examples of that in their life, or I'm not sure. But actually, that's a good question for you. Why do you think women, where do you think that's like come from originally?
Part of it is, I think we're conditioned that in order to succeed in the world and the game that's been designed, we needed to become more man-like, masculine essence. And therefore, in order for us to reach that, get equality, be seen, be recognized, where the end goal, and I acknowledge it. I applaud every woman. I was included in that. I'm going to prove this. There is no difference. The last time somebody said to me, "You play like a girl," I'm like, yeah, don't you wish you could? Like that you can have the fierceness and the finesse, right? So I think we're conditioned in it and we don't even know it. We're unconscious to it. But we so want to achieve our own goals too. We want to live our dreams too. But the way that we're doing it and the way we think we have to approach it cuts off so much power and possibility inside of us that we have in us. And not just women, but men.
Right.
I have men come to me all the time asking me, how do I transition from work to home so that I'm not alienating, controlling, and disconnecting from my family because I don't know how to be with them in a way that creates connection, that creates deepening relationship, that I know how to nurture them and be with them in that way. It's both. It's men and women. It's not a gender-based problem.
And that's honestly, I think that's one of the most important things to say when we talk about this too is that it isn't a gender problem. There are a lot of really masculine women, and you lead groups for men too. I mean, tell us a little bit about that, because when you told me that, I was like, that is awesome.
Yep. Like, well, one of the things I love about it, and I went into it as an experiment. I designed the technology, the curriculum, and then I said, I'm not going to change it. I want to see. I want to challenge my own beliefs about this. Is it true this isn't a gender problem? Is it true that this transcends and goes beyond woman, man, female, male? And so the way that I experimented that is I went in with the same technology and curriculum, and then I just watched what women brought to that technology and curriculum, men brought to it, and at the end of the day, the perspectives a little different and interpretation different, because there is a different perspective growing up, male versus female. Sure. But at the level of integrating and embodying masculine and feminine as an energy and presence in life, and creating more of a holistic approach to who we be and how we behave and live, no different.
Wow.
No different.
Were you surprised?
I stripped it down. I think I bawled for I think I just bawled for a good, the first men's workshop I did after having done the women's workshops for so long. I just wept. I would go home and back to the hotel, and I would just cry and go, oh my gosh, it's not just my idea. It's not just my hope, but I'm actually seeing the results of it. I'm seeing it, and I got to hear the other side of so much of it. Yeah, we got programmed too. Yeah, we have our own conversations that keep us on the same hamster wheel, creating the same things, even when we want something different. And, the same thing. They want to change the historical events, their personal or their family or their dads or their moms or their, bosses or their whatever, or cultural, pressures. Or they want to change the outcomes and results they're creating. But when I have them sit down but who are you and what are you choosing? Are you perpetuating more of the same, or are you creating a pivot moment to create something new? And as soon as they saw that, they were like, oh my gosh. Now they also recognize, now that I know this, I have a responsibility. Because if I'm going to show something different to my children or to future generations, I got to actually embody this and live this. It isn't just about my life now. It's about, what am I perpetuating in the cultural conversations? What am I perpetuating in my family dynamic?
Right.
And then I just get I just lift off the planet and just go, we can create social shifts by what we're willing to really live individually. And that just gets my juices flowing all over the place, right?
Well, I mean, there's such a difference, too, with knowing something and embodying it, right? So it's that whole idea of oh, now I know this. Okay, now I have a responsibility. It's you took the blue pill or whatever in the Matrix. Right. You can't go back now. You've got to take this through your everyday life.
Yeah, and follow it through. Because it's not just for me. It's now, I actually believe that I am a contribution to what's going on in the world around me, and so I want to do that intentionally, and I want to do that well. I want to be a good steward of what I now know, right, and how I'm living that. Which, right, I don't know about you, but I think that's juicy.
I think that's super juicy.
And I know that friction, right, with myself too, and with people I work with. I know that friction of, I can't pretend not to know anymore. I can try, I can give it a good run again. And at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but at the end of the day, I'm I got to set down that whole pretending not to know.
Right. Right.
I can't just turn a blind eye anymore.
No, because then you're not being authentic to yourself either. And then that's all losing your story and embracing your equation that you talk about. And
it does take courage, man. It takes courage. It takes being bold. It's a bold move,
What are some... Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, no, so exciting. Right. What are some, maybe some tips or maybe a step or something you could share for people who are ready to take what they've learned and know and then start embodying it?
It's great. Such a good question, and like there's multiple access points. But one of the things that I would encourage people to do, it's so simple, but I want to teach it. It's one of the primary things. One of the things I do in my workshops is I use embodied postures in order for people to bring this alive in their body, their system. They recognize that not only the awareness in their thinking, the awareness in the emotion, but also the awareness in what it feels like, senses in their body. So one of the things that I teach people right off the bat is if you want to shift the conversation, how to anchor that in the body so that I don't react on my first thought. I don't react on my first initial, conversation. And one of the it's so simple and so subtle yet so profound is put the tongue on the roof of the mouth. Just gently relax the tongue up, rest it on the roof of the mouth, and breathe through your nose. Relax the jaw. And what I link that to is let's go ahead and let the reactive thoughts roll through. Let the tongue come to the roof of the mouth. Relax the jaw. Soften the eyes. And when we can embody that in the head, it allows us to soften around the thoughts. It also kicks us out of fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, we're in survival mode. And survival mode tends to have high emotional reaction, low meaning making, right? When we think we have to either fight it or run, get the hell away from it, it's typically emotionally driven, historically driven. And so this is just a really simple, easy way. And you can do it in a business meeting when you're like, the thought is, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. Like tongue gently resting on the roof of the mouth, relax the jaw, soften the eyes. And the beautiful thing about it is you're embodying it in the head, which is where most of that activity is going.
Right.
I then have people relax their hands and feel their feet on the floor.
I love that.
It serves two purposes. It interrupts the historical pattern of thinking, and it brings us present moment. I need to feel my tongue on the roof of the mouth. I can feel my feet on the floor, and that can support us in the body to come to the present moment, right? No need to fight it. No need to flee from it. Just listen beyond the reaction and see what's there. Now, there's a lot more that I could coach to and support beyond that, but man, if I can get people to just do that multiple times through the day, I hear the feedback all the time, like, oh my gosh, that shifted everything for me. Just that simple, subtle practice. Kick us out of fight or flight, get us out of the reactive thinking, and just ever so over time, bring us present moment right here and breathe and listen beyond the reaction. So that when my daughter is flailing about in front of me about something that to me seems so insignificant and so not like, really, like this is not going to matter, I promise you in about 30 minutes. I practice it there.
I love that. That's so perfect. I mean, even just from like the medical side of things, I know how much healthier the body is when it's not in a sympathetic mode.
Totally. How can we calm the system?
Yeah. So even
we function so much better and the system is calm and open and able to focus.
And then how your communication is moving forward, especially if you're in a business meeting. It's a perfect place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if I'm making a big decision, like it's a pivotal and I can tell in my business, in my company, I'm making a big decision right here. I don't talk first. I really, tongue on the roof of my mouth, I breathe through the first couple thoughts and just let the system calm down a little bit so that I'm not, and I don't have to tell you, I mean, all the stress hormones and all of that stuff and then what that does to the system and then chronic over time. And I mean, if I can support people to just come out of fight or flight a bit, then it will ripple into all of the other medical challenges that they're having difficulty with.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
And then I send it to you and you can go, hey, now we can work with, let's making some other course corrections.
Let's heal you.
Let's heal you from the inside out.
But really, it's you healing yourself. I'm just hanging out for the journey.
That's exactly what I say. I'm going to give you some green stuff and some cool stuff and, take this every once in a while just to supplement.
Right.
But you're going to do it from the inside out.
Oh, yeah. I'm not doing anything.
Right.
There's actually something else that when you were explaining that reminded me of something you had said that I still use all the time. And I've actually said it to my fiance and now it like is used against me, but that I'm totally okay with that. But that's
Love that.
connect before you correct. I remember you saying that.
It's one of my faves.
Yeah, talk
Gonna
to
say
us a
it
little
for-
bit. I mean, it's super simple, but explain it a little bit because it's really powerful.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little, just a brief. I'm a stepmom. I came into an already pre-established family. My husband and his former wife had already established kind of their parenting style and all of that, um, and I came in and quickly recognized that who I am and how I would be in relationship with the kids was different than how it was being presented otherwise. And so how do I move into this without being righteous or right or judgmental? And yeah, I had a lot of training and working with human beings and supporting, and I'd done work with teens and all of that. But how do I come into this family, because sometimes the knowledge we have doesn't translate in application the way we thought it would. I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
Oh, all the time.
But what I saw more than anything was, and with parents, I see it a lot, because I coach a lot of parents, and I saw it in my own experience and my husband, how quickly we go to correct our kids before we connect with them. How quickly we go to look at the grades, look at, are they doing their home, are they doing instead of connecting to see what's there before we then. It's not connect without correct. It's connect before we correct. Because it's the same thing. If I can calm the system down, if they can feel connected in relationship, if they can feel supported in that, then the benefit of the correction or the openness to hearing what we might want to course correct, it's just going to land ever more powerfully if there's connection first. Same thing with my husband. I'll come out of a workshop where I'm the coach, I'm the authority, I'm leading, I'm guiding, I'm doing all that. I transition, I walk through the door, and like the dishes aren't done or the house isn't complete, or things that I typically stay on top of aren't there, and I can feel the impulse. And they know by how heavy my foot falls on the ground whether I'm excited to be home or feeling some real tension and reaction to it. And so I learned pretty quickly there too that no matter what, they've missed me. My husband, my kids, my whoever, they've missed me, and they want to be with me before I start talking about, did you clean your room? How come the dishes aren't done? And not da 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 da. So overriding that initial correcting, and let's admit it, the reason we're correcting it is to reduce our discomfort.
Oh.
The reason we're correcting it is to reduce our own discomfort. And so I get to be responsible in reducing the discomfort myself.
Oh, I love that.
Connection. Because when I connect with my kids and my husband, the discomfort goes away.
Right.
In the connection, it goes away, and then I can come back. If it's still important, I can circle back around and say, oh my gosh, how about if we do the dishes together? Because I'm much more inclined to say that after connecting with them.
Right.
Cuddling with them, being with them, than I am, when I walk in the door and there's a pile of dishes and I'm like, son of a, oh. So it's one of my favorite grounding pieces. I do it with my team too, in my company. Before I go to correct something or course correct it, I'm always listening for and connecting before we do that. So.
Well, and I love how you say if it's still important, because it might not be
after
you have that after you have that connection.
Right, and also like the last place I typically go, but also recognize is important. It's also what I coach people to, is it's important to connect with myself too before I correct myself, because I think we're so self-critical and we're so like on our ass about what about this and you didn't do that and just constant instead of connecting to like, what do I need right now, right? Like that whole, have you ever heard from addiction, HALT? The HALT acronym? If you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're feeling lonely, or if you're tired, probably shouldn't be making any major decisions or
Huh.
engaging in any kind of corrective behavior. How about if we go ahead and,
Oh,
right, feed ourselves first?
right.
We reduce the dissonance and discomfort and anger or resistance. How about if we actually get connected and maybe get some rest before we go after course correcting and making sure we're on track with things?
Oh,
Which,
that's awesome.
right? Like
Yeah.
if feeling a little grumpy, grouchy, a little, punchy, I might want to stop just for a moment and check in and connect to, am I hungry right now? Am I feeling a little tired? Am I feeling a little disconnected and lonely? Am I a little frustrated or angry about something? And when
Right.
when all those come together, which they typically can,
Yeah.
not the best time to be
No.
making major decisions. So connect with myself. What do I need right now? So that I can support my system and myself in making, intentional, value-based
Right.
choices.
I love that. That's awesome. Connect before you correct, halt. We've got all sorts of things now.
All kinds of crazy
I
stuff.
know, but it's so good though, because those little things are the things that are easy to remember. So it's like, and as long as you keep making them a practice and then keep
Yep.
staying present,
Day in and day
it's
out. Fall
awesome.
down, get back up.
Okay, I had one more thing I wanted to ask you. This is see your
I'm kind of
verbiage.
excited. I have no idea what's coming.
I know. I get ready.
On the edge of my seat. What are you going to ask me? Because you're asking great
It's
questions.
well, your verbiage in your on your website and in your about the next bold move. It's so good that I just like I love bringing these little pieces in and having you talk about them. But you wrote, I believe there is innate wisdom. Oh no, 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 it's not that one. Oh gosh, I'm changing it. This one. Tell me about the tipping point of greatness and creating a life we love. I love that tipping point. It's like, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think we experience those often, right? I think we experience those often, like micro and macro. And I think when we are in that tipping point or feeling that there's a quickening that happens, and it is that whole combination of, what my 14-year-old calls nervositis. Like I'm nervous and I'm excited, and at some point, like which one am I going to let like tip it? Right? Is the excitement of the possibility of that what's next and creating that and living that, or the nervousness and the kind of setting into what's status quo? But I think if we can become ever more okay with that nervous-sidedness, that feeling the quickening and the tipping point, and we can recognize it as good news. We can recognize it as, oh, I feel like I'm kind of on the edge of something. And now I have an ability to tip that either forward or set it back. And I have the power to do that. I have the power to use this energy, this possibility, this awakening or awareness or whatever that is, to tip that forward or kind of tip it back. And when we tip it forward, I really do believe that is one of the most beautiful ways to affirm our greatness, to affirm we're acting on behalf of our divine expression. When we're tipping into that, when we're leaning into that, when we're saying yes to that, and that only happens from the inside. Like that's an inside game. That's an inside job. And so to be supported in that, to surround ourselves with people who do support us, to continue to be in environments where we are supported in recognizing those tipping points, recognizing when something's there,
Yeah.
and to support us in knowing we can tip that forward or we can kind of tip that back. But when we tip it forward, to start to see that's a way to actually live into and affirm our greatness, our divine expression. And that is like that you just can't fake. That you can't ever give someone that. That's their magic. That's their life.
And it's also their awareness then of that feeling and what that is unique to them. And that's so powerful too.
That is that whole finding it from the inside,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That is the classroom of life, is those moments, those times. So
That is so cool. Krista, this was so fun. Was there anything else you wanted to share or say or anything before we close our time together?
well, one of the things I do, first of all, you're amazing. All the
Oh,
work you're
thank you.
doing, I hold this as a bold move for you. Like it feels like in some ways, would you say this is your kind of next bold move, the summit and bringing this work and collaborating?
Oh, absolutely.
Because from someone watching you, right? I just want to applaud you. I want to applaud
Oh,
you and your partners, your collaborators in all that you're creating. And I do believe that when women are empowered, our world is empowered. I do believe that men and women coming together in these kinds of educational, continuing our journey and growth is just, there's enough for all of us. I'm about collaboration, not competition,
love
and
that.
coming together in this. And I just want to say, like, first of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank
Thank you
you.
for like celebrating the work that I do and sharing it with people. And I trust the listeners and those that are going to have this opportunity to watch this and listen will find value in all of the different interviews. One of the things I want to say is I know in the show notes you'll let them know how to find me and all of that.
Absolutely.
What we want to do at Boldly Embody Life is also offer that we can include this in the show notes also,
Yeah.
a free offer
Ooh.
that it's going to go out May 18th through the 22nd. So when this particular interview goes live, and I know you and I will work that out, for 30 hours after that, right, or 36 hours after that, we're going to offer a free registration to our 30-day self-love affair online.
Oh my
So
gosh. Awesome.
6 hours. So once this interview goes live, and you and I will work that out, we'll make sure in the show notes to include that link. And
Amazing.
interested, they want to know more about what we do, they want to engage in the body of work that I've created. It's an online course. It's 30 days, daily prompts, daily challenges in really investing and growing in our own love of self and care of self.
Thank
So,
you.
so
You
anyone
guys
who,
all better do that because it's
everyone,
amazing.
right? And then in that, you'll also get more information about Grace and the other work we offer. And would just love to have anyone join us in that.
No,
So,
that's so perfect. And thank you for doing that. That's
totally.
exciting.
Yep.
Yay! Well, I'm excited to keep tabs on all the amazing things you're doing because I think your work is absolutely necessary right now and
you.
anytime. So thank you so much, Krista. I really appreciate you. And we will include all of that in the show notes and moving forward.
Fabulous.
So thank you, Krista.
Thank you.